Do this. Well, hello, everyone. We are back for another guest episode here on the Redeem for Time podcast. I know you guys are loving these because we have so many amazing women in our community and who are part of the Redeem for Time, group at large who are doing amazing things. And Jessica Negron-Solis is one of those women, and I'm so excited to be able to have her on the podcast. I was recently on her podcast as well, so make sure you talk about that as well so people can come find you over there, Jessica. But tell us a little bit about life outside of business. What all are you juggling in this season of your life? What's getting your time these days?
Yes. Well, I am a mom of four and I homeschool my two youngest. And so they are taking up a lot of my time.
Hmm.
They're 6 and 4, actually 6 and 5. He just turned 5. And so, between homeschooling and having them home pretty much 24/7 around, that takes up a big chunk of my time currently in the season that I'm in. But it's beautiful and I love it. And it's just been such a blessing over the last year and a half to be able to be home with them full time and teach them and guide them and just disciple them. And aside
Hmm.
from that, working as, on the podcast, you were on my podcast, A Purposeful Brand, and we talked all about time stewardship, which is such a conversation that I love, stewardship versus managing.
Hmm.
And so that was a really great conversation. Definitely go check that out and go listen to that over there. But yeah, as a Christian life and business mentor, the Lord has really led me to work with other Christian women and really help guide them in building purposeful businesses that are really rooted deeply in our faith and
Hmm.
aligned with the Lord's plan and his will for our business, really.
Yeah, yeah. What better way to do life and business than with God, right? We always talk about. So I love that. Let's kind of dive into that a little bit because the name of your podcast is A Purposeful Brand.
Hmm.
I always love hearing a little bit of the backstory. How did God bring you to where you are? Maybe just share a few little things along the way that He was doing. Maybe you didn't know it at the time to prepare you for what you're doing now and how it uniquely has equipped you to be able to, speak into women's businesses in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this story. I love telling this story because one, it was just such a pivotal moment in my life and in my business as well. I had started my business journey as a photographer and as probably, I think about 12 years at this point in photography. And after I had my youngest kids, I decided that, okay, I'm going to start getting back into the business. And I started pivoting into brand photography. And I really started learning all the things about marketing imagery and the differences, between shooting a wedding versus someone's brand
Mm.
photo shoot. And I really dove into that for quite a few years. And I invested a lot of my time, a lot of my money, a lot of my energy into building that business. And it was going beautiful. It was going really great. And I had actually just walked out of a small group coaching program where I had invested so much time into this program and a lot of money into this program. And I walked out of this program and I was just kind of like this heaviness in my heart. Like, Lord, I don't feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. And I don't know what it is that you want me to do. I don't know if you still want me to be in photography, if that's what you have for me, but it just feels so heavy that I don't even want it.
Mm.
And this was after years of building and growing that business and having quote unquote success.
Mm.
And I just said, I don't want it. It feels too much. And what he really walked me through in that season was really showing me that one, my identity was too wrapped up in what I was doing. And then two, I was so far out of alignment with just working with him instead of, it's interesting because prior to that, I thought that I was going to church. I had a great faith walk. I was doing all the things that, I felt that I needed to. I felt really good in my faith and in my walk with the Lord. But my business was something that I was really holding on
Mm.
to. I was holding on to control in the work that I was doing, and I was constantly putting the pressure on myself and striving. I need to make this work. I've got to do this. I. And
I
the
hear
Lord
the
had to
theme.
slow me down. Yes. He had to slow me down and say, it's not all about you. And so it's through that process of ready to just, give everything up that I had already built. It felt like my baby, having to let go of that. Maybe a lot of, there's some women on here that you're building something and it may be really beautiful. You put a lot of effort into it, you nurtured it, but you might be feeling a little off. Something just feels wrong. And
Mm.
it was through that process that I had to really surrender my business to him and let go of that control. And then about 2 years after that process is when he called me to use my voice to work with other women, to start the podcast, and to help them walk through that journey that I had went through myself.
Wow. Isn't that so interesting? It's like we have to have walked the way. And
Yes.
sometimes a very windy, zigzaggy, looks like the loop-de-loops and all that stuff in order to be
Yes.
able to help other people. And I always like to say, like, let me shorten your learning curve instead of taking all the detours that
Hmm.
I did. And we still, I mean, we all still need our detours sometimes to really,
Absolutely.
pay attention to what the Lord's saying. But, I find this so interesting because, and I want our listeners to hear this. You may have invested time and money in what you're currently doing, and that's well and good. And we should, right? As business owners,
Mhm.
as CEOs, we should be honing our craft. We should be improving our skills. We should be always increasing our knowledge. And that's going to take investing and coaching, and
Mhm.
programs and things like that. But what I love, Jessica, is that you didn't let that be your excuse of why to push past those feelings now it was the Lord, right? And his spirit
Mhm.
that was kind of prodding you to
Yeah.
say, hey, we need to kind of, shift a little bit here. Because I think so often we can just keep like, okay, heads down, like I'm just going and I just got to push through this next obstacle. And,
Mhm.
what I want is on the other side of this fear. And, we can kind of talk ourselves into all of that. And yet you pause to really listen to what God had to say.
Yes.
Do you find that that's a typical thing that women are building something and then kind of come to this point of like, something doesn't feel right and I need to kind of pause and get some clarity around this? Or do you find that that
Yeah.
clarity piece is more in the beginning when they're kind of like looking at a blank slate? Or, I mean, it could be some of both. I'm just curious as you work with people with their clarity on brand,
Yeah.
where
It
they're
could
experiencing
definitely,
that.
yeah, it could definitely be both, but oftentimes they've already started something and they've
Hmm.
built something, and then they kind of hit this like roadblock where maybe they're go, 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 or they feel like they're working so hard, like they're on a hamster wheel, but they're not getting
Hmm.
anywhere. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
stress starts coming in and the burnout is happening and just this overwhelm, and you end up losing your peace, your joy. This very thing
Mm.
happened to me. I lost the joy. I had, been in photography for years. I loved photography. I still love photography, but I lost the joy for the work that I was doing. And I had
Mm.
wonderful clients. I was doing, these fun shoots, and it was a lot of fun, but it was like, man, just something was missing. And so a lot of women, they hit this roadblock where they're
Mm.
like, okay, things look good on paper,
Right.
but man, I just cannot pinpoint. I can't put my finger on what is missing right now. And
Mm.
that's when they're kind of like, okay, something's got to change.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So if you are experiencing that right now, those of you who are listening, don't think that number one, something wrong or bad is happening or that you're alone. We are both here telling you that is very normal. And that is actually a good thing. In fact, that's part of the Redeem Her Time story. I thought that I was launching this thing called Simplified Focus, and I was going to help women to simplify their focus around what mattered most. Right. And like I had all these pieces built out. I had done a lot of market research. I even had 40 ladies on my waiting list that I had legit conversations with, not just like
Wow.
they randomly saw something on social, who said, yes, I want to be part of this when it launches. I got on a plane to go to Central Asia, came back, sent the email out from, the airport as I'm waiting for my luggage, and it was literally crickets. One lady came in over a 2 week period, and I was like, and I mean, I came home and I personally reached out to all 40 people, and it was like, I heard nothing. And I was like, Lord, like, I thought this is what you said. I thought this is what we were doing.
Yeah.
And so instead of pushing through that, like Lissa would have done in the past, I pushed pause. I felt the Lord really prompt me to fast and pray for a week. And during that week, I had a very pivotal conversation with someone who asked a very pivotal question and then sat in a sermon that next Sunday. And that is Redeem Her Time was born in the back of a bulletin that next Sunday. And as soon as I started talking about it that next week, it was like, women started like flocking. And I was like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing, you know? So it's so interesting
Yes.
because,
I
yeah,
love
like,
that you bring that up, that you paused, because that is so, so, so important. When you feel that need, that call, that you just need to just stop for a moment, take that, don't take that lightly,
mm,
because so much, I always say there's so much power in the pause when you can
mm,
just stop.
yeah.
I feel because a lot of the women that I work with and I talk to, very ambitious women. And so we have a lot of like, type A personalities. They got to go, go, go. They got to check the boxes off and they have to be productive. And so they feel that being productive means to do, do, do.
Mm,
And so they're like, whoa, you want me to just stop? And I'm like, yes, just stop.
yeah.
Just
Right. It seems
pause. And
counterintuitive.
oftentimes I will tell, say, hey, maybe you should fast for a few days, like get into prayer about things, because there is power in that
Mm,
pause. There's power in that surrender, and there's power in saying, okay, where are
mm.
you leading me?
Yeah, yeah. And this is the difference. And this is again what God had to show me. There's a difference between doing things for God
Mm,
and doing things with God. In fact, I had an episode right near the end of the year where I talked about the word with, and that's where the with God framework was born from Advent a couple of years ago. And I talked about a book that I had read the past year that, yeah, it talks about like, I mean, so often it's like, I'm doing this for you, God, you know, so it's like,
yeah,
I'm doing it in Jesus' name, but I'm off over here, like you said, running on my own, thinking I have a stamp of approval, but all the while he's like, hey, Jessica, hey, Lissa, hey, Susie, right? Like,
yeah.
are you going to do this with me or are you just going to run
Mhm.
off, on your own? So why? Okay,
Yeah.
let's go into this, right?
Yes.
Because this is really, I think, key. When we talk about time here, we think the best use of my time is to push forward, right? And I'll figure it out as I go. And yet you're telling us the best use of time is to pause. So I want to kind of like sit in this tension right now and kind of feel that and go, okay, if I push past this and just push through it and just say I'll figure it out down the road, yeah, I feel a little foggy or, lack of clarity, but let's just keep going. It'll get clear, I'm sure. What does that end up costing us in time, in our business, and our results, and things like that? And then let's do the opposite side when we do push pause, right? Like, what is the benefit? What's the
Yeah.
ROI on that spending time in that direction?
Yeah, I had heard my pastor, he said one time, when you are spirit led and you're walking with the Lord, imagine yourself on a highway and you have there's no bumpers, there's no side rails or anything. You just have free pass.
Hmm.
And you may go one direction and all of a sudden you end up in just you're nowhere. You're lost and you have no direction and the GPS is not working. And you found yourself in just this place where you were not meant to be.
Hmm.
Now, when you are and in that moment, what do you're losing time, you're causing yourself stress, you're overwhelmed. Now, imagine yourself on that same highway and you're walking with the Lord or driving with the Lord, right? And there's bumpers on the side of the road. You start to veer off a little bit, boom, he brings you right back. You keep going, you stay on the path, you're going to get to your destination with more peace, more clarity. You're going to get there quicker than if you were just off in la la land somewhere else where you're not supposed to be. And so oftentimes we're doing that in our business.
Yeah.
We're working with no direction from the
Hmm.
Lord.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, and no
we
wonder you
find
end up
ourselves
nowhere near where you wanted to be
exactly.
because
Yes.
if you don't know where you're
And
going, any road will take you there, right? Don't they say that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And a lot what one thing that often happens is I talk to a lot of women and they say, "Well, I constantly feel like I have to start over."
Mm,
And it's because you went in a completely different direction. And so
sure.
with your ROI, with your time, you're just wasting time having to
Mm,
come back,
mm,
recenter yourself, and get on the right track. And when you're working with the Lord, not just for Him, but with Him,
mm,
you are letting Him guide you, letting
mm,
Him lead you, and you're going to get to your destination a lot quicker in His timing, in His perfect timing of when you should be getting there.
yeah.
But it's just going to save you time, peace, clarity,
Mm,
stress, overwhelm, that oftentimes you have this weight on your shoulder that you're constantly carrying. you don't have to carry that weight. Because if God called you to the business, if He's leading you, then He's going to get you there. He is then responsible for the outcome
Mm,
if he's in the driver's seat, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. This is so great because yeah, we don't have time, money, stress, overwhelm,
yes.
stress and things like that to waste. And yet we do because we think that we know best or we're trying to go in that
Mhm.
direction and things like that. So let's kind of go into, okay, so I don't want to be in the ditch. I don't want to
Yeah.
be at some random, like out in the middle of nowhere. How did I get here type of place? I do want to be, in the passenger seat, him in the driver's seat, that kind of thing. So like, how do we start building a business in that way and not be the
Yeah.
one who's, saying Jesus take the wheel when things get really bad? I think that's the
Yeah.
prayer that we send up is like, oh shoot, I'm going over the cliff. Jesus take the wheel. How can we
Yeah.
avoid that and start building a business with him? Give us, some practical things to think about or do to go
Yeah,
in that direction.
absolutely. So the first thing that I always say is one, pause. Like
Mm,
if you're feeling that overwhelmed, maybe you're off in the wrong direction, just take a pause. And I want you to first start viewing your business differently. So often we see our businesses as something that, is self-serving or, it's bringing in an income for us. It's just something that we do because we need to make money. And that's all good things, not saying anything is wrong with money. But when we can look at our business as a God thing and as a spiritual thing,
mm,
and it is something that the Lord is using through us. We are his vessels, and he's using us through our business for a purpose. Then we have to sit down and ask the Lord, what is that purpose? Why did you call me to do what you called me to do?
mm.
And so that first step is really just pausing, going to the Lord in prayer, and surrendering our business and just saying, okay, it's yours.
I heard
And
lots of
I'm
P's. I
here.
got pause, perspective, pray, and purpose. And
Yes, there,
for fun.
yeah, there's the four steps. But yeah, we really need, surrendering it. And it can be hard to release that control. We want to do things the way we think that they need to be done or the way we like them, etc., whatever it may be. But we have to release that control and say, okay, it's yours.
Mm,
So, how can I work for you and help you serve your greater purpose through the work that I'm doing?
mm.
And when we can stop and look at that, then we can find that perfect alignment that, where, okay, we're working, we're doing this together.
Mm.
And so that's always the first place is to pause and surrender. And then, one of the things that I love to do is go back to the basics, the basic business foundational pieces.
Mm.
Why are you doing what you're doing? What is the mission of your business? What are your core values and purpose? Who are you serving? And look at those things through a biblical lens and
Mm.
through those conversations that you had with the Lord on who you're supposed to serve and what the impact that he wants you to have in and through your business. And you go back to those basics and you go, maybe you need to tweak them, maybe you need to rework them, maybe you need to kind of change a couple offers to better serve that woman or, man that he's called you to serve, that group of people that he's called you to serve through your business. So yeah, those are the first things. Pause, surrender, and then go back to the basics in your
Yeah.
business.
I love this because I mean it's like what's coming to mind right now is like don't build your house on the sandy land. Like you can build on a rock on a solid foundation, which
Yeah.
ultimately is the Lord, right? And put
Mhm.
down some of these foundational things in our business. Then as we start going up from there, it's going to have something solid to sit on. I think it's when we're trying all these different things and things are always shifting, then it's more like that sandy
Yes,
one
it's
that
just
the foolish man built. And yeah, when things happen and life happens and somebody says no, or,
mhm.
all whatever, it's like everything comes crashing down because you don't have that. And so, yeah, we have to know where to put our time, right? And where to
Absolutely.
focus it rather than throwing spaghetti at the wall, like we often talk about. So what's the benefit when we do this and we take the time to pause, even if we don't think we have the time, and we're really seeking the Lord on what his direction is and,
Mhm.
laying this really solid foundation or going back to, relay a foundation because sometimes,
Yeah.
he's just grown us. And so it's a matter of going back and kind of making things be in alignment. What's the
Hmm.
benefit when we do that? Like, how does that affect our time, our ROI, our business results, even our life outside of business? What kind of ripple effect does that have?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I love this question because I'll tell you, when I first walked through this, and I felt like almost like a ping pong ball. I
Mm,
was kind of all over the place, and now I was like, okay, I have clarity on where I'm headed, and so it brings just a sense of peace. And aside from peace, you also have an inner, that the work that you're doing is purposeful work, it's intentional work, and that brings joy. And when we start working from purpose and clarity, and we're serving the people that the Lord called us to serve, we're doing the work that He called us, we're letting Him lead us, then that's going to save us ultimately time just in our day to day,
mm,
because we're not wasting time going in all
mm.
kinds of different directions.
Yeah.
And it's going to allow the Lord to really bring the people that He's got to call you, which is going to increase your income
Mm,
and have a more impactful business, whether it's in your life, the people that you're serving. And that has such a big ripple effect in all areas, whether your
mm,
business, your home
mm,
life. I became a better mom because I just had more peace and joy through the work. My business did not feel like such a burden.
mm,
And when we carrying that burden, sometimes it can carry outside of work. And so I became a better mom because I'm like, if, like you said, if I don't get that client, or if this doesn't work out, that's okay, because I know that that wasn't for me, and the Lord's going to bring me something that is for me. So I have peace about that. I don't have to
mm,
stress over the what ifs. I don't have to stress over, who's going to come into my programs or things like that. And it's not that you never have stress over those things, or you don't ever feel like maybe you're lacking clarity. But I have tools that when I notice that I am maybe heading off in that direction, I have tools that I bring myself right back really quickly,
mm.
and I don't have to sit in that, because I know
Yeah.
that ultimately, um, where I'm going to go back to gain that clarity and that peace and direction from the Lord. So,
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's having the tools that's going to
yes.
help you get back up and get, start moving in that right direction
Hmm.
again with him versus staying
Yeah.
on the ground or stuck or going in circles.
Yes.
So, yeah. Okay. So I want you to especially speak to that woman. Like right now, life feels really busy. And she's like, I feel like I've hit that place where I'm not
Yeah.
really 100% clear. Like it felt like maybe this was right, but now I've kind of hit that, that spot that we've been talking
Hmm.
about. But life is really busy right now. I don't know if I have time for this. I don't know if I have time to like pause and push pause and really think through these things and all of that. What would you say to her that would encourage her? To lean into this process and to take the
Oh,
time to get
I'm
clarity
so sorry.
regardless.
Sorry, I hit the button on my desk.
No worries.
Well, first off, I would say if they're regular listeners, then they know that they have time, right? They
Exactly.
know that they have time. But it can be really hard to kind of like stop, especially when you're so used to constantly going, constantly striving. But I can tell you this, that God is not going to ever waste any time that you
Mm,
spend with Him.
mm,
It is
mm,
never going to be wasted time. So when you pause to intentionally seek Him and seek His direction, that is not going to be a wasted time. That is going to be probably the best use of your time that you could give in that moment and in that season. And He will honor that time. And I always say that when I am seeking Him in very specific things, and I have to pause when I feel like I don't have the time. After that, whatever, maybe it's an hour, maybe it's 2 hours, sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's just a couple days. After that has passed, it is as if He multiplies my
mm,
time, and suddenly I'm like, whoa, what just happened here? Because now I have all the time to do the things that I need to be doing, all the things that I'm stewarding, all the you know I'm like, wow, and I actually have more time than I thought. Now I have time to do that project, or um, take my kids here, or just whatever it is that maybe I feel like, volunteering at the church or something. It's as if he multiplies that time. So that time will never be wasted.
Mm.
He will always honor that time, and that is going to be the most useful time that you can spend right now. So if you are feeling that you just don't have the time to pause, things are too
Mm.
crazy, that is a
Mm.
sign that you need to pause right now and take that intentional time with him.
Yeah, all the more reason too. It's almost like when you're busy, that's when you can't not do this. And as you were
Yes.
talking, it was making me think about one of my favorite passages from this past year, 2 Corinthians 9, 8 through 11. And in there, it very specifically talks about God being our supplier and our multiplier,
Mm-hmm.
and the one that increases our harvest, so that it will overflow with thanksgiving to him. And
Yep.
yeah, it won't he be faithful to
He
do that
will.
when we are truly
Amen.
seeking him and doing it for, yeah, for his glory and with
Hmm.
him. So I love this. I love this. And we could talk all day because this is something that
Yes.
as business owners, we need to pay attention to, are we in alignment with what we're being called to? Does our brand reflect that, and how am I investing my time
Hmm.
such that everything is, lined up and going in the right direction? So I know
Yeah.
that people are listening today and thinking, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Tell us a little bit about where people can find you. What would be a good next step for someone who wants to get in your world and find out a little bit more about what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one, you can always go to my website is a great place to find everything that I'm doing, the podcast, how to work with me, etc. And that's jessicannsolis.com. So you can find me there. And a great first step is really going through the faith and business alignment challenge that I have. And it's a 5-day email series. And every day you get a email that gives you one little challenge for that day and scripture reference and journal prompts, and it just walks you through being more intentional and purposeful and helping you to align your business with the Lord. And so if you enjoyed this conversation, you're like, okay, maybe I'm feeling a little off, that is a great first step to go to, because you're going to walk through those 5 daily emails and walk out just having more clarity and intention with your work.
I love that. I just went through it. So I can speak to the fact that this is one of those emails that you will see an ROI when you open. I feel like our inboxes are full of a lot of emails that are just taking up space
Yeah.
and making us feel bad that we have all these unread emails. But guess what? Most of them are not really moving the needle and moving us forward. So delete, unsubscribe. But Jessica's, you definitely want to be coming into your inbox. So we will make sure to link to that in the show notes for those of you who are listening or watching over on YouTube. And I always invite my guests to come into the Redeem Her Time community so we can take the conversation off the podcast and off YouTube and be kind of in real life virtually, but in a place where, yeah, we can have more connection and things like that. So I've invited Jessica to come into the community once this episode goes live. And you guys are welcome to be in there too. So if you are listening to my voice, and you are not a member of the Redeem Her Time community, I don't know what you're waiting for, because this is a free community where you are not only allowed to, but encouraged to promote what you do on a regular basis, not a certain day of the week on a certain post in certain comments. Otherwise, you might get your hand slapped. Come over in the business directory. We're all here because we know that God has called us to the mission that He's given us in our business. And it's been so beautiful to see the women connect there and find people that either are their best clients or a great connector or their next collaborator. So you never know. So you're going to get to talk to me and to Jessica over there. So the link to that is redeemhertime.com/community. So be sure to come and join us, and we will continue the conversation over there. But as we wrap things up, Jessica, thank you for your time
Yeah.
today, pun intended.
Thank
I
you.
know it's going to produce a lot of good ROI fruit as people are really taking these things to heart and doing them. And that's what we'll be working on over in the community is this next step implementation piece. So make sure you guys come over there. But I always like to ask this last question just to kind of get into your heart and calendar. This is coming out at the beginning of a new year. And so often we have, a new set of intentions or, things that we're really wanting to focus on. So what's one thing that you are wanting to intentionally invest time in 2025? And what's your ROI why around that? Like, why does seeing a good ROI on that time matter to you?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I think for 2025, my time will be invested in building a community, a membership community with other like-minded women of faith that are desiring to be intentional with their business and
Mhm.
purposeful with their business And when you can bring together a community that, it's not just business, but it's also faith, and you have people that can pray for you and support you and really understand why you're doing the work that you're doing and the greater purpose for it. I think it's just a beautiful thing. So that's where I'm going to be spending my time building in 2025. So I'm looking forward to building that community.
I'm all about community, as you know, with the Redeemer Time community. So definitely make sure that you share that inside of our community as well. So that way people can find out about what you're building and be part of that as well. So thank you, Jessica, for sharing
Thank
just your
you.
heart and your story and your mission and message with us. I pray this blesses a lot of people. If you're listening to this, do not keep this to yourself. Right now, I want you to think of a business bestie or two that need to hear a conversation like this and share this episode with them. And let's help more busyness owners to redeem their time and really increase their ROI with God as they're building the lives and businesses that He's entrusted to them. So thank you so much, Jessica. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Lissa.